Sarah had always loved spending summers at her grandparents' house in Savannah, Georgia. The old Victorian home had been in the family for generations, and as a kid, she and her younger brother Luke would spend hours exploring its endless hallways, hiding in closets and sneaking cookies from the kitchen when Grandma wasn't looking. But there was one rule, and it was strict. Grandpa always said, "You stay away from the room at the end of the hallway. You don't touch the handle. You don't knock. You don't ask about it." At first, Sarah never thought much of it. The door was just there. Faded green paint, a black iron handle, no keyhole. But the way Grandpa said it always made her uneasy. Whenever she asked why, his face would go pale. "Some doors are better left closed," he'd say. Everything was normal until last summer. Sarah was 17 then, old enough to know better, but something about that door always lingered in the back of her mind. One night, she woke up to a strange sound, knocking, slow, hollow, coming from the end of the hallway. At first, she thought it was Luke. Maybe he couldn't sleep, but when she checked his room, he was fast asleep, tangled in his blanket. Then the knocks came again, 3 of them. Sharp and steady. She froze, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. The sound was coming from the locked room. She stood there in the hallway, staring at the door, unable to move. The knocking stopped after a few seconds, but it left an awful silence behind. It felt like whatever was inside knew she was there. She thought about telling Grandpa, but decided against it, worried he'd just dismiss her. The next morning, she tried to bring it up casually during breakfast. "Grandpa," she said, keeping her voice light, "does someone live in that room?" The spoon in his hand paused mid-air. His jaw tightened. "Sarah," he said softly but firmly, "we do not talk about that room." She hesitated, then whispered, "But I heard knocking." His hand slammed the table, rattling the plates. "That door stays closed," he said, his voice shaking slightly. It wasn't just anger in his face, it was fear. 2 nights later, she woke up again. This time it wasn't knocking, it was scratching. Faint at first, like fingernails dragging slowly against wood, then faster, harder, until it sounded desperate. Sarah pulled the blanket over her head, trying to block it out, but then she heard something worse, whispering, right outside her bedroom door. The voice was low and hoarse, words she couldn't make out, but the sound was wrong. Too deep, too hollow. She clutched her phone, thinking about calling Grandma, but the moment she unlocked the screen, the whispering stopped. Summoning courage, she crept to the door and cracked it open. The hallway was dark and silent, but her blood ran cold when she noticed the locked room's handle. It was turned all the way down, as if something on the other side had tried to open it. The next morning, she told Luke everything. At first, he laughed, saying she was dreaming. But when she showed him the door handle still resting slightly downward, his smile faded. Unlike Sarah, Luke wasn't scared. He was curious. "We should open it," he whispered, "just once. I want to see what's inside." "No," Sarah said quickly. "Grandpa would lose it." Luke grinned, unfazed. "Then we wait until they go into town. We grab the flashlight and check it out. It'll take 2 minutes. No one has to know." Every part of Sarah's gut told her this was a terrible idea. But 2 days later, when Grandma announced they were running to town and Grandpa went with her, she found herself standing in front of a locked door with Luke anyway. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Luke held the flashlight in one hand, resting his other hand on the door handle. Up close, Sarah noticed deep scratches etched into the wood around the frame, like someone had clawed at it for hours. Her stomach tightened. "Ready?" Luke whispered. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Luke twisted the handle. It clicked. The door creaked open. The smell hit them first, damp, stale air, thick with dust. The room was pitch black, the air unnaturally cold, like stepping into a basement that hadn't been touched in decades. Luke clicked on the flashlight. cutting through the darkness. The beam revealed cracked wallpaper, cobwebs clinging to the ceiling, and a rocking chair sitting in the corner. A wooden trunk rested against the wall, its lid slightly open. "See," Luke said, whispering like they were in a church. "It's just storage." Sarah wanted to believe him until she saw the floor. There, drawn in white chalk, was a large circle filled with strange symbols she didn't recognize. Melted candle wax pulled around it, and sitting at the center was a black candle, long burned out. On the far wall, carved deep into the plaster, were 3 words: "Don't let IT out." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Before she could say anything, the flashlight flickered, and from the darkest corner of the room, a voice rasped, "Finally." Sarah dropped the flashlight. The room plunged into darkness. Then came movement, fast, shuffling, rushing straight toward them. Luke screamed. Sarah grabbed his arm and yanked him through the doorway. They slammed the door shut just as something hit it from the other side, so hard the frame rattled. Then came scratching, louder, angrier. That night, Grandpa came into Sarah's room, his face pale, hands trembling. "You opened it?" he whispered. Sarah tried to deny it, but he shook his head slowly. I told you to leave it locked." He sat on the edge of her bed, his voice low, cracking. "In 1963, your great-uncle Thomas thought he was clever, tried summoning something he didn't understand, thought it was just a ritual, but he didn't control it. He let it in. We trapped it in that room that night, and it's been waiting ever since. If it ever gets out..." He stopped, his voice breaking. Sarah didn't need him to finish the sentence. The following night, Sarah woke to the sound of the hallway creaking. Soft, slow footsteps outside her room. She sat up, holding her breath. The footsteps stopped. Then her door creaked open. It was Luke. But something was wrong. His skin was pale, his lips almost blue, and his voice, it wasn't his. It was deeper, raspier, like 2 people speaking at once. "It wants us," he whispered. Behind him, in the darkness of the hallway, came more footsteps, heavy, slow, deliberate. Sarah slammed the door, locked it, and pressed her back against it, her heart hammering in her chest. On the other side, nails scraped slowly down the wood, leaving deep grooves. The scratching hasn't stopped since. And somewhere inside that house, the locked room isn't locked anymore.